Hi, Anti-Society! Welcome back to the Anti-Social Button. Today we are checking out Dreamcatcher's Maison, and I am a little bit in denial going into this because this is the last official, main discography music video I have left for Dreamcatcher until the next comeback. And I don't really know how to function that way. I've been putting this off because I wanted to always have a music video for a rainy day. And I know there's lots of other content, and I know there's other covers and songs and things that they have done for OSTs and all of that. I get it, but it's not the same. And I just didn't want to deal with the reality of it, okay? But we're here now. We have to eventually do it. So here I am, excited, but also a little bit sad. A little bit sad going into this. That being said, I have watched the other music videos that are part of this kind of overarching storyline. I'm definitely going to have to go back and rewatch them with more context because at the time, I know Vision was early on in me getting into the group and I was not really following everything or really paying as much attention to storyline stuff as I am now that I've done previous music videos from them. But Maison, I know, is house in French or home, it's gonna have something to do with that. I also know that with the other music videos in this series, we had some images of environmental related stuff. So that's really all I got going into this, but excited. Excited to get another Dreamcatcher song. Always excited when that happens. Just sad that it's going to be a little bit before I have another comeback. Y'all have been dealing with this for years, haven't you? And I'm not ready for it. I mean, orange-haired Handong. I know she has her thoughts about it, but so do I. With those contacts, dang. Love all the sparkles we got going on in these pictures too. Okay, I'm procrastinating, but I'm sure it's gonna be fantastic. This is one of the songs that I remember. I mean, partly I remember a lot of people asking me about this because when I got into Dreamcatcher, this was the last comeback. So lots of people wanted me to check it out because it was newer at the time. So I'm here for the hype, but I'm still in denial. Oh dear. Oh, we're gonna have a guitar like that. Ooh, that's a nasty guitar line with the distortion. Ooh. Okay, no, I know we're getting into drop stuff. Okay, nasty guitar in this. Love it. Love how it's just out of the gate, tons of energy. There's almost this wind up with the production until we get into the vocals. But interesting that we had someone got comfortable. That is very interesting to me, especially since we're dealing with apocalypse stuff, right? Saying someone got comfortable. I know that we're kind of dealing with, given the other music videos of Vision and Bon Voyage, an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic storyline with that. So I'm assuming that this is kind of the catalyst of a lot of the imagery that we're going to be getting in the rest of this, and saying someone got comfortable and therefore things kind of fell apart, right? A clear dead sign, right? Saying hey, there's a warning sign here. There's this clear indication that the other side of this is tragedy, and you got too comfortable seeing those signs and you ignored them, right? I also think that we have the forest, through the forest follow the light. I think that that's really interesting, especially since we've had imagery all the way back in the Nightmare storyline stuff of using forests and that kind of being this escape route, right? I'm thinking through a lot of that when they were trying to get out of the manor that they were trapped in, right? When they were the nightmares, the forest was kind of their way of getting out of that and kind of venturing through it. And lots of imagery throughout their songs of venturing through darkness to get to the other side and having there be light on that side. So interesting to continue that through. And then there was Gahyun's line, the way that she did break your habit now, literally breaking down the syllables of that delivery and having that descending vocal melody, I think is really nice, especially since we're dealing with kind of what I'm assuming is a bit of a tragedy. I'm assuming something pretty catastrophic happens within like storyline stuff for visuals. So having something that is like this descending melody leading into the chorus is like literally this falling, right? Of like, hey, things are going downhill. You need to break your habit of like being comfortable and not ignoring the signs and like not seeing things for what they are, right? Especially if we're going to be dealing with stuff that's more like environmental angled, right? Which they've had some in their previous music videos, even leading up to this. You know, we had like the tree that was in multiple of their music videos and how it was like decaying and dying. This nature trying to exist within more like modern contexts. And if we're talking about that kind of being incorporated into the tragedy, especially if we're doing like Maison, right? Like if we're talking about home, Earth being the only like true home that we have, right? And that kind of breaking around us. So having that kind of like descending note of like, this is all kind of coming, it's all kind of going downhill and you're ignoring it. Did I finish the thought there? I hope I did. I'm excited. Love all the layered vocals in this mix too. Ooh, Dami, please. Ooh, okay. I love having that like quicker delivery in this too. And like, again, kind of staying in that lower zone. We kind of descended leading into the chorus. And then it's kind of like staying in this kind of lower pocket of their ranges, right? And having like this listing off like oceans, deserts, jungles, right? Again, all of these kind of environments, all these different parts of the world, and saying like, hey, protect my maison, right? Like protect my home, protect the place where I live, where I inhabit, right? And even the like, please someone fight for us. I think that is, you know, one kind of this general cry out of like, hey, can someone step up? And I think that's really interesting going through some of the storyline with the music videos, of kind of seeing them kind of fit into some of those pockets, right? Like there's some like almost like abilities or whatever that they have, almost like superpower things going on with some of the imagery in like Vision and Bon Voyage. So them kind of like stepping in to maybe some of that role as the story progresses. But also it makes me think of, and I know that this is part of like a different story in terms of like what they're trying to do, but it makes me think of Justice, right? Like Justice Makes Me Fight, of them being like, I'm a warrior, right? So I kind of think it's interesting that we have this earlier on in their discography of like someone fight on our behalf, right? And then having a song later that is like, I'm the warrior, fight me, right? Like those are the, you know, so I think that it's really cool to see that progression in the just like lyrical content. And again, I know that that's kind of dipping into like villains and virtuous stuff versus story stuff, as opposed to what this is kind of encapsulating. But it's just interesting to see that progression with even just their choice of like lyrical content.
사람들은 다 하고 싶은 대로 해 진심 비운 껍데기뿐인 거 왜 눈질 끈 감어 기다리다가 딱 봐도 보이지 않는 미래 후회할 때는 이미 늦었단 걸 알아 너 변하기만 하면 닥쳐 이상하게 닿지.
Ma'am, I was gonna let you finish your verse, but then you whispered aggressively at me, and now I have to go back. I love the like everybody do what they want to do, like everyone is doing whatever and not paying attention. Look, I feel, look, if we're venturing in to environmental things, I just need to tell you that this has been a special interest of mine for many, many years. Okay, my dad calls me his tree hugger for a reason. This is something that I am very passionate about. I've done lots of research in. I've been doing lots of research for a very long time, even as a kid. So if I get a little too excited talking about this, just know that that's where I'm coming from. Anything with Dreamcatcher, I'm gonna get like a little bit excited. But if we're going into that kind of like environmental side of like them kind of begging people to pay attention, right? It even says like, promise in vain, clench your eyes, right? Like saying like, oh, you're gonna make all these promises that you're going to change things, help with stuff, actually care about what is going on. And instead you close your eyes and pretend it's not going on and do whatever you want, right? So I think that that is very much in part like in the suddenly hot, like is it suddenly hot, or have we been seeing this ratchet up for a while and now it's affecting you, so now you care, right? Which I think is ooh, the like the planet so dry just like your conscience. Ma'am, I mean, go for the throat. I will fight with Dami on that one because I've been begging people to pay attention for a while. So I think that's just like really cool. Like I knew that we had some environmental stuff in terms of some of the imagery that they were bringing into with like Vision and Bon Voyage, and I've had some discussions with people, and there's obviously some stuff in their music videos again with those, but then also previously. But this one feels far more on the nose about it. Like it feels far more of like, hey, our planet is our home. We all have to live here. Please care about it because I care about it and I want you to pay attention. But there's only so much that I can do as like a single person, or even just like, you know, our 7 here, right? Like that isn't a whole world banding together to make changes. And I'm also fascinated, someone can hopefully let me know down in the comments about what this discussion is like in South Korea, because I'm not entirely sure. Again, digging into like environmental stuff is something that I have a special interest in, but it's definitely more Western centric, North American centric in my knowledge in terms of the overall like discourse around it. So I'm not entirely sure how much that there is of that in South Korea, like how South Korea kind of like deals with it, manages it, educates about it policy wise. Definitely let me know down in the comments because I would love to know. I feel like I might go on like a research rabbit hole of this just because, again, special interest of mine. But the way that Dami whispered, ma'am, I'm gonna need you to step back. I'm already on your side. You don't need to be aggressive with me. Like no time to regret it. Interesting, we have Follow the Rain now. I need Xian to not sing like that. Or like vocal fry they're putting in. Oh no, I'm worried. I'm worried whenever you wind down like that with the guitars and the production. But I also love that it's like grungy, right? I think that it's really cool bringing in some of those like grungier feeling to the way that they're like the production is. Like I was saying, like the guitar and having this like lots of distortion on it earlier on, kind of leaning into some of those grungier sounds, because, you know, grunge and punk music in general tends to be more on that kind of like protest side of history, at least historically. We get into some gray zones later on when certain genres get popular enough that they kind of get watered down from their original focus, their themes and stuff overarching, but leading into an art style that definitely has its background in like protest and bringing up issues that people probably don't want to talk about, and, you know, being very like blatant about having those discussions, right? I was talking about how this song is far more on the nose than I thought it would be. I know that people have talked about this storyline having a leaning towards like environmental issues and them kind of trying to raise some awareness for those going on, but this is far more blatant than what I had expected, having seen some of the other stuff in this story arc. But I think that also kind of leans into kind of grunge and punk aesthetics of being in someone's face about things and being like, hey, this is a problem. This is an issue that is going on right now, and I need you to care about it, because asking nicely didn't work. So now I'm gonna make you listen to what I have to say. So I think that it's interesting that they're digging into some of that, even like the lower vocal delivery. I was even saying they're putting in kind of this vocal fry into their vocals, again having a bit grungier feeling to the overall song, which I think is really cool. Ooh, rewind when the time when seasons were clear. Oh no, before you come at me with whatever this drop is gonna be, love when we slow down into a bridge and we get some Minji vocals, just like always good. But also love that, like, again, I was saying there's so many interesting like layered vocals in this production too, and then having kind of this like choir, you know, effect in it as well. But I also think it's interesting to have some of those voices kind of layered in. Some of it's like pushed deep into the production, but it's supposed to kind of fill in the background of what they're saying. And I think that that's really interesting too, as like this collective voice of, it isn't just Dreamcatcher that is talking about these issues, right? And again, I don't know how much of this issue is, what the discourse of this issue is in South Korea, but I know that there are lots of people all over the world who are like, hey, care about this, because the rest of us do. The rest of us, every single person has to live on this planet, right? Until further notice. But we all live here. We all have to figure out a way to live on this planet as harmoniously as we possibly can. Sometimes we're better at that than others. But, you know, we all have to protect this planet. It's the only one that we've got right now. And it's probably the only one that we're going to have for a while. You know, as much as we like to be optimistic about what it might be like in the future, this is what we've got. So we have to protect it. And at the moment, that's kind of going downhill a lot faster than we're developing ways to move to somewhere else or to fix it. So having all of these collective voices in the song of this kind of like, you know, big push behind what they're saying is like a great effect of saying like, hey, we're not the only ones. There are all these other people who are behind us saying like, yes, please fight for us. Please fight for this planet. Please protect this place that we have, because we all call it home. We should all care about it. We're going to listen to the bridge again. Of course we are. Love the vocal melody too. Ooh, that beat pad coming in. It almost has like a marching feeling. You playing dumb? Ooh, having that wind down with the guitar too. Like, I think it's interesting having the last line be please someone fight for us. And I also like that we get a little bit of a softer delivery with it as well. Like it doesn't have the same kind of bass tone. You know, a lot of them before this has kind of had this lower part of their tone when they say please someone fight for us, and having that kind of thinner sound to it has more like fragility of like, yes, I'm coming at this being like very blatant and straightforward and saying like, this needs to be fixed. We need somebody to care about this, to protect this, and kind of having this united front. I was even saying some of the beat pad coming in has this kind of constant, very almost jarring beat to it that has kind of this marching feeling to it. There's kind of this collective almost threat behind the song of like, care about this, because eventually it all fades away, right? So either we care about this and change something, or it all falls apart around us. And having, you know, kind of this show of strength leading up, and then having the last line be this point of vulnerability of like, please care, please, you know, like this begging behind it, which I really think is interesting. Also points for saying la maison. Great job, because grammatical gender, I don't know, some people can't figure it out. So great job, la maison. But I'm excited for the music video now, because a lot of very straightforward imagery in some of the lyrical content. So I'm excited to see how they incorporate that, and also maybe pull some of the imagery from Vision and Bon Voyage. Maybe. I can't promise anything, okay? I can only say that I'll try, especially since I've gotten to the point where I've seen so much of their stuff that I'm like, I don't entirely remember which music video that was. I'm not the kind of person who watches like one music video now, okay? When I go back and rewatch stuff, it's because I'm having a binge, not because I'm like focusing in on a singular music video at a time. So sometimes these get jumbled, but I will try my best. I mean, I already have the like, please someone fight for us stuck in my head, so that bodes well. All right, already a little bit ominous. This feels like sunset, which usually when it comes to imagery means that we're dealing with ending, given the story arc we're about to walk into. I'm gonna assume that that is the case. Okay, is that our... oh, okay, we're just having an angel come down to earth. Hello? Oh. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything important. I know we'll get more of this, but dang! Sorry. Okay, focus. We must stay focused. They're telling us, wow. Sorry. They're telling us a very important message that I'm supposed to be paying attention to, and I'm making sure I don't forget anything. Who gave dummy waist jewelry? It's fine. I mean, look at her. Angel indeed. I know that they're probably like superheroes of some kind. This is the whole power thing that we got falling from the sky. But a little distracted. It's fine. This is why we check out the song first. No, don't raise your eyebrow at me. Ooh, we had the statue before, didn't we? Or later. Ooh, don't smile at me like that. Girl, what I was gonna say before I got distracted is interesting that we had the contrast there. Like, okay, I can sit here and I can talk about the fits because they're good, but also because they have a bit of a more alternative style. And I've talked about this before in some of their other music videos, how it's really interesting how they have the contrast of these more alternative, grungier styles, and then having these kind of like flowy dresses, right? Having kind of this double to them as well. So I think it's interesting that we had Gayan there in kind of this flowing dress, and we had some of the older architecture again, which is something that keeps kind of popping up of them kind of referencing back to Greek Roman-esque aesthetic, but also the card. What's the card about? Ooh, good transition in the... sorry? I'm sorry? Ooh. Interesting too there. It's almost like being like in a well, right? Like being kind of stuck in a place. Interesting. I think of that at both, like, I'm thinking of it as being stuck in a singular place and like needing to kind of climb your way out of it, and kind of it looks like she's taking on the challenge, but also like this whole saying of like being stuck in a well is like being stuck in your small world and being unaware of the stuff around it, right? So we have all these other kind of like figures with the statues kind of facing inward, right, to the inside of this well, and then Gayan being the only one who's looking up, looking somewhere outside of where that well might be. So I think that that's interesting too, of like having people who are kind of stuck in their small world and they can't expand their thought outside of it. Having that in tandem with this idea of global like warming and climate change and all of that stuff. I got distracted a little bit by the choreo. Misua kindly, respectfully step back. Also all the little cuts and stuff. Oh, I'm in danger. Ooh, ma'am. For science? For science! I'm gonna have to watch it again. Cool, fine. That's whatever. The outfit's fine. The confidence is fine. The powers, totally don't care. It's like we're like infiltrating, I'm assuming, right? We've decided to fight and we have like the like no signal, but we're trying to get the message out, I'm assuming. Hijack it? By fighting our way through whoever these robot things are. Yeah, because we're showing almost like a burning forest, right? Getting the message out. Ooh, look how pretty. Ooh, that Perfect. Dang. And also like the ruins, right? Which we've had before of like focusing in on some of this older architecture and having kind of these ruins left behind. I just think it's fascinating kind of pulling that through, even though, again, different kind of storylines and story arcs, but a lot of like crossover, right? With the previous storyline, that one focusing a little bit more on like technology and social media and that side of it. And this one leaning more towards, at least from what I've talked to people about and going through the song lyrics, leaning more towards kind of some of that environmental stuff, but they are intertwined in a lot of ways, right? As we start to lose ourselves in technology more, it's a lot easier to escape from stuff going on, even though it's a lot easier to connect with people and understand that there are things going on in the world that are worth paying attention to and educating ourselves about. But it's also a lot easier for us to escape from it and to have, our small little pocket of the world that we kind of end up curating in a way with the way that we interact with technology, and it filters out a lot of stuff that maybe we should be paying attention to, right? But like love kind of the contrast in some of the like aesthetics and imagery of it. This effect, the like pixelated. Do not smirk at me, ma'am. The transition there. No. I mean, I will fight for you, but also... Wow. Ooh. Dang. Okay, I was just saying, I love the contrast again of us having the two different aesthetics of having this more flowy, like feminine styling, and then having this older architecture, and then they kind of go through the portal. I'm assuming that this is maybe where they were before they ended up landing on kind of Earth or the disaster zone, and them kind of teleporting down and having more of that, like, again, alternative grungier aesthetic because they're ready to fight. Also love the image of almost like a boardroom and having like the horned humanoid-esque person at the head of the table. Feels very devil imagery, right? It has some kind of like leaning towards some of that biblical imagery, but also linking that with something that feels very like corporate. So I think that's interesting as well. And having so like kind of descend down into that meeting and being like, hey, care about this, pay attention. The like red coloring too. The reds and golds. Dang, the facial expressions. Ooh, that image of almost having, again, biblical imagery and then having this shift into almost like Grim Reaper. Ooh, fascinating. Ma'am. Ooh. Interesting. Again, getting into some of the biblical imagery, I was thinking partway through, I already made the comparison with Justice, but we also had some interesting biblical imagery in that music video as well. Again, later on, different storyline, but I think it's interesting that they kind of pull a lot of those things that kind of thread through in what they're talking about, right? And also think it's interesting to have some of that imagery mixed with some of this classical imagery, right? I already talked about kind of the comparison with like Greek, Roman, pantheon related mythology and stuff like that, and having it that kind of feel when we have Dreamcatcher kind of in this liminal space outside of what seems like Earth, given that we had the like Los Angeles sign outside the portal, right? So them almost like having this, I was saying like kind of like superheroes before, but it almost has like gods or demigods feeling to it, because it's almost like a switch in power, right? Like them destroying the kind of like ram's head person who was at the head of the table, and then having them kind of take that place, maybe. Because I was also thinking we had a bunch of the other people at that table also having animal heads, and I was thinking about how we get a lot of that imagery in like older mythology, right? Like gods, Egyptian specifically, but like there's also like other instances in which gods are very closely associated with animal forms, right? Even just having something that is connected to like the devil or Satan, also like a ram-headed person, right? So having multiple different deities associated with having animal forms, or like partly animal, partly humanoid, I think is really fascinating too, of having like, hey, you are the gods of this, right? Like you're playing God in not paying attention to this, or living your life as if it doesn't exist, and still having these huge impacts on everybody, right? We all live on this planet, and so you're having these drastic effects on how the planet works. You're playing God, and you need to rethink that. So I think that that's really interesting to have those contrasts there in the imagery. Ooh, I definitely want to go back now and specifically look at like Vision and Bon Voyage and see how some of the imagery kind of evolved over time. In my opinion, this song is great, not just because like sonically I really like it. It's a bop. I love all of the production stuff on it. I really like them leaning into some of the grungier stuff in terms of it like sonically, and I think that has some really cool like vocal moments in terms of them kind of playing with their delivery of it, right? Like I don't think it has some of the kind of show-stopping big vocal moment as in like Bon Voyage. It's like some incredible vocal moments in it, right? But it's also supposed to be a little more uplifting in its overall message. So I think that this one having something that feels like this kind of barely contained rage in the way that they're delivering the vocals, I think fits so well with the overall song. But I mean, if you're going to combine Dreamcatcher and anything that has to do with like environmental issues, I'm already excited. Those are two of my favorite things to talk about. So I feel like there are so many things that I can kind of take away from this. There's so much like rich imagery and like lyrics that I love in it, different images in the music video that I want to pull from. And I think that's also interesting to think of this in the context of when it was released, right? So looking at a lot of the kind of images that they were pulling through was 2022, right? So thinking of the kinds of discussions that we were having at that time and some of the things that were going on in terms of the conversations we were having in relation to environmental issues and things like that is fascinating for me. Because I think at that time, 2021, 2022, where I live in Canada, it was like I couldn't go outside. I could barely like function in my own house because there was so much like smog and smoke from us having wildfires around here, right? And then us having that image that Dami was broadcasting in the music video of like showing the fires and be like, hey, it's not that there's no signal, show the people what actually matters. So that kind of hits a little home with for me of something that, you know, where I live has to deal with that a lot. So, and stuff going on now with fires and people's homes getting destroyed and having to relocate and all of that. There's just, it's still a thing that we need to be talking about, right? So I think that is also important. Even saying like, hey, it feels like they brought some of this forward into like Justice and some of the other songs that they have released after doing this series, you know, even outside of the storyline, is because it's something we still need to talk about, right? Saying that, hey, this came out in 2022. What has happened in that conversation other than we're seeing more of the ramifications of our decisions? So I think that it's interesting to pull apart some of this in like a more current day perspective, and also remembering the time that it came out. So I have too much I want to say in this, and I'm sure that when I'm editing I'll have more ideas, and when I rewatch I'll have more ideas. So let me know down in the comments all of your stuff, okay? And I've already seen the other music videos in this, so if you want to talk about connections with Vision and Bon Voyage, go ahead. I've seen them, so you're not going to spoil anything for me. What a good song to kind of make me a little bit more okay with the fact that I'm going to have to wait in the next comeback to get more music video stuff, because at least it hit on a special interest of mine. But I hope you enjoyed listening to that along with me. You can click this playlist to go into my previous actions, or you can subscribe to me next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.